Hello.
Hello. Hi everyone, I hope you've had a really lovely week, especially last week with all the lovely sunshine. I hope you've been able to get out and about and enjoy the fresh air. So this week for maths, year 3, 4 and 5 are going to be looking at geometry. So some of you might be looking at 2D and 3D shapes, and some of you will be looking at angles. And for English and for your writing, you're going to be thinking about writing a persuasive text this week. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next part of the video. As I said, for maths, some of you will be thinking about 2 and 3D shapes, and some of you will be thinking about angles. As something extra this week, I would suggest going outside and maybe having a little hunt. Maybe you could actually make a sheet with your family and go and have a little hunt outside and see how many different 2D or 3D shapes you can find in your garden or out on a walk. And then maybe have a think about what angles you can spot outside. Can you spot any right angles? How many degrees are in a right angle again? Can you find any examples of acute angles or obtuse angles or reflex angles in real life? So I'd like you to go and investigate that and maybe even have a little hunt or think of maybe a little competition with your family, who can find the most right angles in a minute, for example, or who can go on a walk and point out different shapes and angles that you can see in real life. I've got some mini 3D shapes here, and I wonder whether you can name them and whether you can tell me anything that's special about the shape and any of their properties. So first of all, what's this? What's special about it? And what about this one? What's it called? This 3D name. And where would you see examples of this in real life? What about this one? What's it called? Can you think of any examples of this shape in real life? And what about this one? What's this one called? And this one. And this one. And two more. And you name these 3D shapes, and you can you tell me what their features are, what is special about them? So you're going to be doing some persuasive writing, and I wonder whether you've ever had an experience in your own life where you've really had to persuade somebody to do something that you want. It might be that you've had to persuade a friend to play your game. It might be that you've had to persuade somebody in your family because you wanted to do a certain thing, maybe have a certain dinner. Maybe you've persuaded your parents to buy you a pet or a new toy or an ice cream when you're at the beach. So have a little think. Have you ever had to persuade somebody before in real life? And when you did persuade that person, what did you try and do? What did you try and do? Did you try and give them a lot of compliments and flatter them? Did you think about the argument, both sides of the arguments, the pros and the cons? How did you persuade somebody? And often persuasion is used to make a change, and we need to think about whether when we persuade we're doing it for good or for bad reasons. But often persuasion is used to bring about some kind of change. It might be that you're a leader and you want people to come on board with your new ideas, or it might be that you think things aren't going quite where you want it, so you want it to change, so you're going to try and persuade people to do things that you want to do. It's an interesting skill to learn, and I'd be I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with this week and what you think about the argument I've put forward. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So by the end of the week, you are going to be writing a piece of text in a persuasive way, some persuasive writing. And there's lots of information in your packs to read and think about. I want you to have a think about these two things that I'm going to talk to you about now. So the first thing is, quite often you'll hear politicians talking about the rule, well, including if they're trying to persuade people, the rule of three. Do you know what the rule of three is? So some people call it triples or three examples, but the rule of three is it's a good way to try and remember it. And this is where you repeat an idea 3 times. So for example, you might say, do it well, do it fast, do it good. You're saying something 3 times to really push the point home. So you might say, I think that children should have their own mobile phone because da 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 da, and then you'd give 3 examples in one go. And so that's called the rule of 3, and that's where if you really want to persuade someone, you give 3 examples in one sentence, and that can be a technique to try and persuade people to think how you think. Another example of a persuasive technique to try and get people to think how you're thinking is to use rhetorical questions. Have you heard that before? Rhetorical questions. So for a rhetorical question, you're asking a question to make somebody think about something, but it's not necessarily a question that you're being asked to answer. So it's designed to make you think, and we're not wanting an answer. So I've got an example here I want to share with you, which is, isn't the solution obvious? Why would anyone want to hunt foxes with dogs? So I'm asking you a question that I want you to think about, but I don't actually want you to answer it. That's called a rhetorical question. So this week, by the end of the week, when you do your persuasive writing, I'd like you to think about really trying to include those 2 techniques, as well as I've given you a checklist of things to try and include, but those are the ones I'd really like you to think about: the rhetorical questions and the rule of 3.